Hello everyone, so we just had Sasquatch release into Marvel Snap, and coming in at a 6 cost card with a massive 10 power with the really big ability of cost 1 less for each card you played last turn, this can easily be a flexible card. We've seen how valuable flex cards can be in like a White Widow, a Red Guardian. Somewhat even Sage has found her way into a lot of builds. I think Sasquatch is going to be exactly the same. Sasquatch is going to be paired great with something like Mysterio. It's going to be paired great with things like Bounce. But what I wanted to use it as is a tempo play. I wanted to use it today in a build that also leverages a couple of the other Spotlight cards in Havok and Ravonna Renslayer. Just today I pulled Cannonball alongside these new additional cards, and so I can finally build this kind of tempo Professor X into just blast the opponent on the last turn with a Cannonball style of deck, and I'm really excited to test it out. I think it's going to be a great shell for Sasquatch, not in the way that Bounce would utilize it every turn, but I think Sasquatch in something like this, where it's a backup line, a kind of redundancy piece where 10 power for 4 cost is still pretty decent. Sometimes you'll get it for a little bit cheaper. You're never going to get it for just absolutely free like you would for maybe Bounce, but that means you're not as susceptible to something like a Mobius either. With Sasquatch in this build, we want to ideally use him around turn 4 if we don't have Ravonna on the board. That would allow us to do an easier turn 5 Professor X lock into a Cannonball. That gives us another alternate way to push for a couple of different locations. We're competing for a couple of locations, making it hard for the opponent to know where a Professor X play would come down, which of course gives us more room for outplays. And so overall, I had about a 60% win rate with this build. It feels really good. There are a lot of Mobius decks running around right now, probably to counter any kind of Sasquatch shenanigans that might be in brew. But even so, I think this build leverages him fairly well. You can either use it in combination with like a Hope Summers to really ramp him out a little bit earlier, or as a tempo play on turn number 4, turn number 5, to really make it hard for your opponent to choose where to push that power towards. And the biggest thing that I like about this deck is that it's fairly versatile. You have your Havok, you have your Professor X, your Cannonball, but a lot of the other pieces are very interchangeable. So if you don't have White Widow, you can go with a Nebula. That's another great early game discount onto your Sasquatch, another early game scaling piece. If you don't like the Green Goblin play, you can go with a Sage. If you don't like Wolfsbane, you can go with something like Enchantress to counter any kind of Cerebro or greedy ongoing builds that you might see. Cannonball is irreplaceable. Hope Summers also feels very irreplaceable. Ravonna. If you don't like the Sasquatch play in this one, you can easily cut it for another low-cost card and lean a little bit harder onto the Cannonball interaction. But with that being as transparent as it is, I like an alternate way to push a decent amount of power on the last turn of the game. So we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. Thank you guys as always for being here. I hope you guys enjoy. Professor X. Whenever you get Ravonna, you have a huge swing in your favor. And so we do force the retreat on the last turn of the game. Let's go ahead and take the easy 1 cube. Let's see if we can get a Sasquatch game next. All right, next up we have Sato. The first location is Hellfire Club. We do get Ravonna in our opening hand, which is a big push for us. We have Cannonball, which is going to be a good way for us to win that secondary lane. I'm going to go ahead and play Ravonna into mid because we don't want Cannonball, if the other location is locked down, we don't want Cannonball to try to push something out of Wakanda. And so that may be the location that if we get a Professor X, that might be the one that we look to Professor X lock. We get Coal Obsidian. We don't have any 1-cost cards just yet. We could do Angela plus Jeff. And then next turn we're looking at like a Hope Summers, or just a 4-cost Sasquatch in the middle location into maybe a double drop on turn 5. But let's go with this until we figure out exactly what that looks like. I would like to get Hope Summers down, but I'm not sure if we necessarily need to or not. And so they come down with the Nocturne, so they can change a location. On turn 5, we can do Hope Summers plus White Widow, which is a nice kind of dynamic duo. Let's go ahead and play Sasquatch into mid, assuming that their card will eventually leave this location, or if we draw into Professor X next turn, that's definitely what we're going to go with. And so with this one, we're just looking at a good mid-value Sasquatch play. And so a good tempo into a Professor X, if we didn't have something like Ravona, is fantastic. So I think we play Professor X into mid. Next turn, we're looking at a Cannonball, but depending on what else we draw, if we draw Kitty Pryde or Havok, we can do a double drop here. We can move Jeff over. But Nebula is going to scale here, so Nebula would be the one that gets sent into a different location, unless they play something bigger in Great Portal this turn. And so let's see what they ended up dropping into the middle location. It's Miss Marvel. Even if they move Jeff over, that's not going to help them out any. So this is a 14 power swing, 19 power with Nebula getting shifted somewhere else. This is what we're going to go with. I'm going to go ahead and end it with Cannonball on the right and see how it goes. The big Orca play in the left lane is not going to be enough. We disrupt the Orca bonus, but Miss Marvel does hit over in that direction. Miss Marvel doesn't hit in the right location. We're able to swing mid and the right lane. With the tempo Sasquatch, we didn't have Professor X on hand early, but he gave us that flexibility of deciding where to drop him to lock in a location. We will go ahead and take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Drev, and we are getting incredibly lucky with Ravona. She is in our starting hand once again. Let's play Ravona. We have the Green Goblin and the Wolfsbane that will be reduced from having her on the board. We can either use that alongside like a Jeff and Angela into mid to really get a lot of value on it, and then we have additional cards that we can play there later. We have a couple of kind of fun ways to leverage that. Let's play Angela plus Green Goblin into the right location. So with seeing Sentinel, typically I only see Sentinel whenever it's a Cerebro 3. So we have to anticipate a Mobius. Mobius may come down this turn, and so we're going to drop 2 of these resources. We also have to look out for a Valkyrie line, but Cerebro is the kind of main one that we're looking out for into the Valkyrie later on. And so they do have the Mobius, and so our cards are not going to be reduced any further. I think that's all right. We can do Jeff plus Havok, but then we're going to be really limited on the amount of energy we have each turn. So instead, I think I'm going to go just Jeff this turn. It doesn't feel great, but doing just a Jeff lock, I think, is the safest play for us. They do have Ravona of their own. They have Jeff. We have to look out for a discounted Mystique and Cerebro now because no Bast has been put into play. They're going to have a hard time competing for the throne room because if they do and we don't have something that comes over the top of it, that ruins their Cerebro bonus altogether. Let's go with... I'm going to go with a White Widow plus a Jeff. Next turn, we have the Cannonball, which if this lane on their end is completely capped out, we can shoot whatever card we want over in the throne room. It will break that Cerebro bonus, and that is what we're aiming for. With White Widow, we don't have to worry about if they actually play and cap this one out, so it's not as much of a liability as like a Goblin, but we do end up hitting the right choice. So they have Crystal to help them draw into additional cards. Of course, they can move their Jeff out of Fogwell's gym, but they would have to throw it into the throne room, which is going to ruin any kind of Cerebro bonus that they're going for. So our Wolfsbane right now is beating this one. I think we're just going to throw Cannonball in the right location and hope for the best. Now, if they have a Valkyrie, they will overpower us because they're going to set the Green Goblin back to base. But I think that's a risk I'm going to take here. Or if they try to go the Cerebro line instead, the throne room is going to be ruined by whatever card we shoot over into instead. And so they played 1 card in the throne room. Their Jeff moves over, and so that is going to be a 6 power. Even if they just threw Cerebro down, it is not going to be enough because it's not going to do anything for them anymore. We unfortunately sabotage their buff up, and so we will take the 4 cubes with the fun Cannonball line. It is one that is really annoying to play against, but really fun to play with. I'm really glad I finally picked up this card. It leads to a lot of potential mind games and outplays. So we're going to take the 4. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Dara himself. We do have a decent starting line. So their hood, what is that going to destroy in RN? The first location being Hotel Inferno. We lose our Cannonball. Unfortunately, they lose their Jeff, which is not as big of an issue. But Subterranea, oof, that comes down, and that is rough as well. We do have the Havok, so we could lean into potentially like a Havok into a Professor X line. But we will see what that looks like. Let's go Angela into the left lane and then see if they bounce any of their cards in yet. If so, then we might be safer to do something like a Green Goblin. Ooh, I don't think Squirrel Girl, maybe they're running like a Mockingbird Sasquatch combo to just try to get value cards on the board. That's what it kind of looks like from this end. I'm going to play Green Goblin in the left lane. I think they either have like a Lady Deathstrike that they're going to try to use to destroy the left location. I think that has to be the most common thing that they're going to be shooting for. So the Demon in the right lane, the Rock, the Kitty Pryde, if they don't have a way to pull those cards back in, that left location now becomes very, very easy to pull home because they're not going to be able to pull those cards back in. So all we have to do is play a singular card into that location at all, and we'll be able to capitalize. I guess I'm going to play a Rock into the middle location. We could do Havok, but we're not quite ready to be able to drop that bomb yet. And then next turn, I would like to be able to do something. Yeah, the Sasquatch comes down. That is big. We don't have Cannonball. Mockingbird comes down as well. So we're going to have to look to do something to outscale, I guess, this right location because we don't have the Cannonball. And they know that we don't have the Cannonball, which is the unfortunate part. So let's go Jeff plus Kitty Pryde plus Havok. If we can get Sasquatch next turn, maybe we have a shot, but it's not a great one by any means. And so we're going to go ahead and lock in this right location. I think they're in a pretty good spot with us not having Shang-Chi that we're leveraging. I guess they could be running a Patriot build that runs both Mockingbird and Sasquatch. That'd be devious. I don't know that we could outplay that one. As long as they don't snap, I'm okay sticking this one out. But if they had a Patriot, that would buff up, I guess, the Demon, and that'd be hard to outpace. We unfortunately don't get Sasquatch. I'm going to lock in the right location with a Kitty Pryde and Wolfsbane. We will get the scaling from Havok after this turn ends, so we have a little bit of wiggle room, but it depends on what their last turn play is. It depends on how big that play comes down. And without them snapping, I think Dara is usually, if he has an okay line, pretty good with snapping. The Kitty Pryde, the Angela, the Mysterio, the real Mysterio in the right location. We have the Wolfsbane coming down that's going to come over the top of it, plus the scaling from the Havok. Even though the real one is in the right location, our Green Goblin came in absolutely clutch for us, locking in a location. We will take the 2. Not a pretty one by any means. We didn't draw our Sasquatch, which would have helped us a little bit in this right location. Not a pretty one, but we will absolutely take it. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Corvus Enjoyer. The first location is Elysium. We have Ravona to get an even further discount into Professor X. Sasquatch is going to be pretty free depending on what other resources we draw. We can get a turn 3 Professor X, which is massive. I think we probably play... Ooh, the Kitty Pryde is going to help us continue to get a big discount on our Sasquatch. Let's play White Widow into mid. We're going to play Kitty Pryde. And then we could either go with a Professor X lock on turn number 3, or maybe we go with a Sasquatch on turn number 3 instead to give us a little bit more flexibility. So they have Hope Summers. They have the Misty Knight from the High Evo build. I think we'd probably be safe to do something like this. Kamartage would be okay with like a Wolfsbane to get that double trigger. Having this one locked in, we could also hit a double Cannonball, which would be nice in the right location. I think we're going to lock in Professor X into Westview. Let's go ahead and play Kitty Pryde just to continue kind of scaling it a touch. And as long as they don't put anything massive there, we should have a pretty good push in the right direction. So they go Blink, and Blink is going to bring them back up to even. Misty Knight switches for Cyclops, which is unfortunate here. We are going to trade hands on turn number 6 or after turn number 5. So we need to do some big plays beforehand. If we draw Jeff, that's going to be beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and play... I think I'm going to play Sasquatch into Elysium. No, I'm going to play Sasquatch into Camartage. I don't want Cyclops to continue chipping away at it. So we're going to do Sasquatch, we're going to do Kitty Pryde. Next turn, we can do the double trigger of Wolfsbane in Camartage, and then we're hoping for a Jeff. A Jeff would help us win that middle location again, but we'll see. They have the double discount from their Shocker, so they're going to try to be emptying their hand as well. But we're not going to give them much of any. We may not give them anything to use on this last turn. I'm going to go Hope Summers, I'm going to go Kitty Pryde, and no. We're just going to play Hope Summers. We're not going to get any scaling from it. That's fine. I don't think we need the additional power. But if the middle location is truly a tie, then this right location is just absolutely stacked. With a double trigger of Wolfsbane coming in here, we have the 10 power Sasquatch, the 8 power Angela, the Wolfsbane. They have a really big Hulk into She-Hulk combo, but it's still not currently beating what we have in play. And so with their Hope Summers, they don't get anything in return. We get their Jubilee, we get a Green Goblin, but that is way too risky to play. We're going to be looking to do Jubilee, which would hit their highest power play. Their highest power card here. I don't know that it's great, but we are going to play Kitty Pryde. It's going to scale this up a little bit further. And then we're just going to hold our Green Goblin. We definitely wanted Jeff to leverage in this location, but we'll see. We'll see what we end up pulling with the Jubilee play. I wish we could guarantee where Green Goblin would go, but we could have used it in the left location, it looks like. They have just the Wasp, so their Hulk will scale. The Wasp is going to hit 2 of our cards with that scaling. We hit the Cannonball, which is going to destroy their Cyclops. Make sure that that does not have any kind of negative affliction in that left location. With the Kitty Pryde, we're going to outscale their Hulk scaling plus the Wasp. We win the left, we win the right, and we just have the tie in mid, which we will absolutely take. We'll take the 2 cubes where we can get them. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Read My Title again, and it's snap on turn 1 or no guts. And so they didn't have any guts either because they did not snap on us. I'm going to go ahead and play Ravonna. We do have almost all of the cards that get positively impacted by Ravonna in hand. We have the Angela, Havok, and Professor X. And so on turn number 2, Onslaught Citadel is a little bit scary depending on what kind of deck the opponent's running. But I'm going to play Angela. I'm going to play Jeff. We could end up doing just Professor X into like the middle location maybe. Or maybe we wait one additional turn so that we can play Professor X and Havok in unison or together. Nebula does end up sticking in Danger Room. Very interesting. With the White Widow hitting the Onslaught Citadel. So it gets the double disruption, which is really unfortunate to see. But we can do Hope Summers. We can do Havok. We're going to have to cap out this location by the end of the game eventually. But with Hope Summers, with Havok, we could lock in this right lane next turn, take away the negativity of the Widow's Kiss. We get the extra energy going into the last turn so that Havok isn't too much of a detriment. We'll see. It depends on what we end up drawing. But I think with Angela in the left lane, never mind. We don't have the scaling of Nebula or Angela anymore because of their Red Guardian. We do have Havok, which is going to help us win this right location, hopefully. And then we do have Sasquatch, which in this scenario is not going to be all that great. It'll end up being 5, so we could potentially do it alongside a Kitty Pryde. We don't have Cannonball, so Sasquatch is going to have to be our kind of end-all go-to. And they could actually fight for the Onslaught Citadel here. But this does scale by 8 more, and it takes away a -8. So I think it's really tough for them to fight for Onslaught Citadel, even if they wanted to. And so I thought about playing it into Danger Room, but I don't think that's what we want to shoot for. They have Sandman, so it's only 1 card going into this next turn. The Professor X helps us win this right location. Then it comes down to winning the last one. If they have a leader play, that's unfortunate. If they have a leader play, it's unfortunate, but we're going to take a gamble into the Danger Room and hope that they have something like Dr. Doom. Red Hulk in the left lane. Okay, we have a potential. If this sticks, we can win. It does, and we are able to outscale the middle location with their big behemoth of the last turn play. We have the lock-in with Professor X in the right location, giving us just a little bit of that high power flexibility on the last turn. We will gladly take it. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have a Western Pirate. The first location is Limbo, which this deck definitely doesn't operate too incredibly well with Limbo. But I don't think it should be that awful either. A lot of times, some versions of this deck will run a Nocturne in place of something like Green Goblin, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. We're going to go double White Widow. It's a beautiful, sinister London location. We did get the Hello from Western Pirate. I do want to snap here, though. So I think we're probably going to maybe after this turn. And it could force an early retreat as well, just because this is really so much power that they're having to deal with. And then the Green Goblin coming down. We have Havok and Cannonball. We have a lot of just value that we're getting from the Sinister London while not taking up that much space on our end. So we are going to go ahead and hit them with the snap. This one may not be a Sasquatch game. We don't have it in hand. Plus, playing it in Sinister London is difficult. But with Green Goblin coming down, it's a lot of value on the board, taking up a lot of their space, and we are relatively clean on how much space we've taken up. So now we do have Ravona. I think we do just a single Ravona. I think we're going to double up on our Kitty Pryde. We'll pull both of those back in. We have Cannonball, but Ravona would allow us to do a cheap Professor X lock going into this next turn, trying to make sure that their Widow's Kisses stay negatively afflicting. Professor X is beautiful to see here. Let's go with a double Havok is kind of scary because it's going to bring us down to 4 energy. And so if Havok is not lined up with Professor X, it's going to leave us with 4 energy for multiple turns. That's fine. We're going to go double Havok. We're going to go double Professor X. The Havok does go to the left, unfortunately, and Professor X does as well. And so both of those are locked into place. The Kitty Pryde is locked into place. Jeff can move out of the limbo location, but we're going to continue to scale. In both of these, we put them in just an unwinnable situation with all 3, I guess 2 of the 3 Spotlight Cash cards this week with Havok and Ravona, and then Sasquatch was sitting in the bottom of our deck. So I wanted that to be the last game, but I want the last game to be a Sasquatch game, so we're going to go ahead and jump over into one more. Okay, next up we have Dr. Stink Hartson coming in at rank number 43, so definitely a worthy final game, hopefully. We have Angela, we have Green Goblin, we have Wolfsbane to leverage. If you don't like the Wolfsbane play, if you have Sage, Sage is a perfect sub-in. If you don't like the Green Goblin, you could do something like Enchantress instead. With their Kitty Pryde coming down, they did add a Sentinel into their hand. I think we go Angela into... I'm gonna gamble a bit here. We're gonna play Angela into the right location, the unknown location. US Agent means that we would want to have our low impact cards in the Forge. Let's play Green Goblin into the Angela lane. We have White Widow plus Jeff. And then maybe we lock that one in on turn number 5, depending on what they play. So we know that they have Kitty Pryde. So I think a White Widow would be ill-advised here. I'm going to play White Widow into the left lane, at least get a little bit going into this location. We will be able to do a Professor X, maybe a Professor X plus Kitty Pryde next turn, but I don't think the Widow's Bite in the right location would be able to go off or would be able to trigger. And so with Ravona coming down, that helps us scale here. Widow's Bite here is massive. Professor X is going to be a -3 in the Forge, though, which is the biggest detriment here, is how much that could negatively impact us. They weren't able to pull their Kitty Pryde back into their hand, which is really unfortunate for them. We do have 2, 4, 6, the perfect curve here to cap out this left location, keep it all under the US Agent range, and get quite a bit of power. So I'm going to lock in a Kitty Pryde plus Professor X, double scale in the right location. I don't think they'll move Nocturne this turn. I think they'll wait for Kitty Pryde to be able to pull up. They might move it to get a little bit of extra scaling on their energy, get the extra energy from Hope Summers. We'll see what that looks like. If so, it would have to be a little bit of an improvement over the Nocturne. And so they did snap on us. We'll see what that looks like. I don't know what kind of deck they're running here. Leveraging the US Agent, the Nocturne, and a few other cards. So they do play for mid. They play for the right location. They move Nocturne over to the left. And so let's see what this right location looks like. The red Hulk over there is super unfortunate, but fortunately for us, we know that that card is not going to scale because we can use every single bit of our energy here. So we can either do a Sasquatch into Wolfsbane, which is big, but Sasquatch is going to be negatively afflicted here. If we had been able to play one more, we could play him into the big house. I'm going to go ahead and do this number. This one is going to give us so much value from that surprise Camartage. Red Hulk is going to lock in at 12 instead of being able to scale. I would snap back, but we're gonna leave it as it is. Sasquatch is one of those that it's more so either a tempo play before the Professor X if you don't get your Ravona, trying to get him down on turn number 4 for 4 or 3 energy, and then potentially a last turn play depending on what it looks like. But we do get the retreat from Mr. Dr. Stink, and we will go ahead and take it. There's been so much Mobius, so much just restriction in that Sasquatch play. Unfortunately, we didn't get more usage from him, but he is, I think, a valuable addition to this style of build because you have a couple of alternate ways to get him into play, whether it be the extra energy from Hope Summers if you don't end up getting Professor X, or it gives you that extra scaling to more easily choose what location to lock in with your Professor X. And so we're going to go ahead and take the 2 here. That is where we're going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you guys as always for being here. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.